Today we have a really special guest speaker with us, and we're going to be talking about thyroid health and nutrition and how that all combines into autoimmunity as well. So we're really excited to have Yana Re with us today. Before we get started, though, we're just going to quickly introduce ourselves for those of you who aren't familiar with us, and then we're going to get started. So for those of you who don't know who I am Jessica Melnick. I am the creator of the Anti-Arthritis Method, the host of the Happy Joints Arthritis Solutions Group. I am a registered holistic nutritionist, and I help people with various forms of arthritis get back to living life the way that they want to, not the way that they have to. And Casey, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah. My name is Casey Kephart. I'm a functional medicine nutritionist, and I have the program, the Feel Good Formula. I work with women with all different types of autoimmune diseases to get back to the activities you love, trash your symptoms. And I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, where the sun always shines and the humidity is overwhelming now. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Yana. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner. I specialize mostly on hormones, thyroid health, gut health. I work mainly with women, busy professionals and busy moms, just like I am myself. I have 3 children, and by modifying their lifestyle, educating about nutritional support, I'm always happy to help out on their health journey, to listen to their symptoms, to their body better, and and just get back to, feeling optimal.
Amazing.
Yeah. What's your business name, Yana?
It is Better Wellness. So I have a Better Wellness Facebook group and also an Instagram account.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today, Yana. We really appreciate it. And we're really excited to get your insight into thyroid health, because I know within our communities, thyroid health can be an issue for a lot of our community members. Yeah. Especially I know with Casey, you're dealing with like Hashimoto's yourself. And we do have a lot of members in our community with Hashimoto's, which for those of you who aren't familiar, is an autoimmune form of thyroid. I guess I'm saying this wrong. It's an autoimmune thyroid disorder where you have a low functioning thyroid. It's also possible to have an over functioning thyroid. So today we're going to talk, I believe, mainly about the lower functioning thyroid and things that we can do about that. So I guess the first question I have for you, Yana, is like, what are some of the different thyroid disorders that a person can have?
Just like you mentioned, the most common, popular one that I see with my clients, it's hypothyroid, which is underactive thyroid. It's when we see too much of thyroid stimulating hormone. The amount of it is high, but the thyroid is sluggish and slow. And then there is an autoimmune disorder called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is very connected to hypothyroid. There are many research out there confirming that hypothyroid usually leads to Hashimoto's, or Hashimoto's will lead to hypothyroid. So they're very connected together. Not necessarily all the time, but about 80%, that's what we see. And then also existing one, but least common, is hyperthyroid, which is overactive, fast burning thyroid disorder, and the autoimmune disease is Graves' disease. I myself, like how I came to this more of an alternative medicine field, and I wanted to find out what was really not well, not optimal with me. What happened, I found out many years ago by going through one practitioner to another and really digging into a lot of truth and not truth was happened to me, which was Hashimoto thyroiditis. I had antibodies to thyroid. My immune system was attacking my thyroid gland, and it became more obvious to me why I felt not normal, low energy, constantly fatigued, and many other symptoms. And what we see in what we see in hypothyroid is usually high TSH, right? Even above normal range. So mine was kind of hidden, and that's why it took me a while. It took a lot of practitioners to understand, and we do see a lot of that, and which is why a lot of women, I'm mentioning women because hypothyroid and Hashimoto's is commonly seen in 60% of female population, more than in men. And my TSH was always low, below 1, and my T3 and T4 were low as well, but they never got tested. They have never been tested at that time. And that's why I was just walking around with somewhat normal TSH, having this subclinical hypothyroidism, and not knowing what to do with this until I hired a nutritionist for myself, hired a functional medicine doctor, and then years after revealing everything, I decided to go into this field myself, get certified, and get this deep knowledge through a very good school, and with the great desire to go and educate others about this. That you don't have to suffer.
Yep.
You don't have to feel to live with this guilt, being a lazy person, but you're not lazy. You're just not functioning optimally.
Yeah, I love that. I think what some people might be confused about is the labs. So you mentioned TSH, you mentioned T3, T4, all of those things. Can you explain a little bit into the labs and what those are really, and maybe what to ask your doctor to go get? Because we know there's a couple different tests that are run.
Mm-hmm. So in standard labs, in standard routine lab work, conventional medicine doctors usually order just thyroid stimulating hormone, which is TSH, and T4 only. To see a bigger picture, just like I gave you my example of the hidden hypothyroidism, we want to have on hand a full thyroid panel, which includes TSH. We want to see the T3 and the T4. That's when we can see the conversion of the thyroid hormones much more better, like what happens on that level. Because again, your TSH can be somewhat okay, but if the thyroid hormones by itself are not tested, we don't see what happens with the conversion, how the T4 turns into how our thyroid makes that bioactive T3 hormone, which pretty much regulates helps to regulate most of the body, like most of the organs, the whole system. And then it is also important to test reverse T3, but general practitioner would not go that deep. So that's kind of a job for the specialist, and that would be endocrine health specialist. And then obviously 2 thyroid antibodies, just to dig deeper in case if the person has Hashimoto thyroiditis, autoimmune disease. Those are 2 thyroid antibodies, TPO and TG. And then we also want to test based on the symptoms, of course, and we can talk about the symptoms a little bit later. and the TSH receptors to Graves' disease. So there are two types of autoimmune disease, but most commonly we see the Hashimoto thyroiditis. It's also good. CBC, like the complete blood count and metabolic panel, also contain very good markers that can be also very valuable to look at the bigger picture. The difference between, there is a bit of so there is a thing, people do their annual blood work or even twice or 3 or 4 times a year because they have the symptoms. They have many different symptoms, and very often practitioners, general practitioners, are saying that, well, your blood work is normal, so it must be all in your head. That is a very common thing that is happening, and so we, in total confusion with this. So the lab ranges, the reference range, is the standards are very old and outdated, and but we're very, I would say, lucky nowadays because the functional medicine, alternative medicine, takes a different approach to it. They look at the optimal range. Normal range is very wide, and that can be related to any, like if we talk about any autoimmune disease, especially like rheumatoid arthritis, right? The same thing. So we want to kind of base on the optimal range, which is always 1/3 of the normal reference range, and that's where we can settle more because we are so bio-individual, and you can feel well with having, let's say, thyroid stimulating hormone measured at 1. I can feel very sluggish.
Yeah.
So, and it's just way too wide and way too big and way too uncertain. It is a bit complicated. It gets complicated because most of conventional medical doctors are not open to evaluate those labs.
Yeah.
And the problem is that insurance companies will not usually accept this, will not cover. But there are ways, there are lots of MDs who are trained in functional medicine and will be very open to test you a little bit in a different, more delicate way.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's so important to know because I know, like, for a lot of like my clients and people in my community, they don't know, like their doctors are telling them everything is normal, and they've like, well, I've been tested, so, and this is what came out, it's normal. So it's so good to know that there are further tests that are, will actually give you a true picture of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Yes, and this is just an educational advice. And I believe that every thyroid patient, a patient with thyroid symptoms, thyroid disease symptoms, should be under care of medical doctor. But I'm glad and we're lucky that we are trained in educational field to help people out with this.
Yeah. I would even say, though, too, that if your doctor is not going to order this type of lab test for you, especially since they didn't find anything and you are having symptoms of a thyroid disorder, maybe to fire your doctor and go find another doctor, because
just
really
run.
Exactly, because you're your own advocate for your health. The doctor is not always right. You know your body better than anybody else. So you can go to another doctor and you can ask them to run these tests. And if they don't, go to another one. But all three of us would advise you to go see a functional medicine doctor, a functional medicine practitioner, someone in the more holistic field, so they can get that full panel for you and start looking at root causes and take more of a deep dive, because they're more likely to trust your body and what you say, other than most times the conventional doctors do just say it's all in your head because they don't see it on the basic lab work, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes, don't waste your time. Don't be like me. Don't change 6 practitioners and get blamed on being lazy and that it's all in my head and that I'm just a mom. What an offense.
Right.
Really though, and you knew your body best, and you kept searching. Yeah.
So I
So
think sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Casey.
I
Oh,
was
I
just
was
going to ask about the
say,
symptoms.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Go ahead, Jessica.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. No, it's perfect. I was going to say, so Yana, you talked a little bit about like how you felt when your thyroid wasn't working properly. So can you give us a little bit of an idea of like, what are some of the general symptoms of having like hypothyroid symptoms?
Yeah, definitely. So there are many symptoms of that, and again, we all vary by individual. And one, it's just if your friend feels it that way, if your neighbor feels that way, it doesn't always mean. But the most common symptoms are fatigue, even upon awakening and throughout the day. So it's just that abnormal fatigue and blood sugar crashes in the afternoon, just feeling sluggish. We tend to see a weight gain, especially around waistline and thighs, and women have a hard time. Both men and women is just women. Women have a lot of hormones, and sometimes estrogen isn't helping with the much faster healing process, right? So a hard time to lose weight, to optimize the weight, even with excessive exercise. And excessive exercise is also the key word here, excessive. People tend to think that, in order to lose weight, I need to exercise more, not let myself rest. But that actually can create a backfiring effect on your whole endocrine health. So again, that's a big red flag. If you're constantly exercising, if you're very active, if you're a runner, but you just wonder why, and you tend to eat less, maybe, right? You count your calories, but you're still not losing weight. So that's just something to pay attention to. What else? Obviously, it is hair, brittle hair, and nails. Hair tends to fall out. Dry skin, signs of, I would say, early aging. Um, People tend to feel, with hypothyroid, people tend to feel like air hunger, feeling compelled and restricted in closed rooms or small rooms, with the feeling of just opening the window, right, and getting out there. It is poor memory. It's that little indication that you walk in a room, and that happens to you frequently. You walk in a room and you forget why you came in the room for with that particular room. Sensitivities, food intolerance, and mostly it's, we kind of feel sensitive with dairy and gluten products, and grains can be irritating. Bloated stomach, which is also related to food sensitivities. Constipation, if we don't poop out at least once, twice a day, that's a big sign as well. Sluggish digestion and low body temperature upon awakening. I think it's called basal body temperature test. So that can be performed at home. We can kind of, talk about it, post about it later, like the details, which is, it's pretty good and accurate test. And symptoms of hyperthyroid, it is usually nervousness, anxiety, even when the person is trying to sit down and rest, it's still feeling very irritable and kind of resting, but with the nervous energy. Mood swings, difficulty falling asleep. It's more of a people tend to lose weight, frequent bowel movements versus constipation, muscle weakness, and sensitive to heat. So in hypothyroid, it's not very common is that the body weight, extra body weight, stubborn body weight, but also very thin and slender people can have hypothyroid, speaking of myself here. So it's not that common, because usually it's like, I hear that in conventional medicine a lot. So if you gain weight, you will have a hard time. So like thicker people tend to have hypothyroid, and thinner people tend to have hyperthyroid, right?
Yeah.
So it's not always that.
Yeah.
So what else? I think I covered most of it, like most of those common symptoms.
Definitely. I would say all of those symptoms really sum up most of our groups too. Not saying you have a thyroid disorder, but just coming from an autoimmune disease, those are very popular symptoms to have, especially the food sensitivities. And speaking of that, Yana, can you tell us a little bit about like the gut connection with your thyroid, and a little bit about like the microbiome and how that plays a role in your thyroid health?
Yeah, so there is so much to it. Microbiome is such a big topic, and it's like you need a scientist here for sure about some just general things that
Yes.
we tend to experience. Thyroid is a very delicate and sensitive gland, and especially when we talk about thyroid, the thyroid autoimmune disease, one of the triggers is actually food sensitivities, right? So the gut, and another thing is toxins and infections, and it can be inflammation in the gut. We can talk about more of unhealthy pathogenic bacteria that settles in the gut. And as we know, in most of the immune cells are grown, synthesized in the gut lining, and the healthier microbiome, more of the friendly bacteria, there is more opportunity for the healthier, stronger immune cells. Now, with the food sensitivities, gluten and dairy tend to be, and grains, most of the grains tend to be very triggering for the compromised gut lining, right? So we call it leaky gut. And for example, gluten has the similar molecular structure as the thyroid tissue, as the thyroid gland tissue will have. So they're the same in molecular structure, and our immune system, our immune cells don't differentiate between the gluten and the thyroid tissue, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just like the immune system is not trained that way. And when we eat gluten, and the immune cells see it as an invader and mistaken it by the thyroid tissue, because they're absolutely kind of the same in the molecular structure, and go and attack your thyroid gland. So that's how the autoimmune attack happens. And then those attacked cells of the thyroid gland leak into the bloodstream, and that's like when we measure thyroid antibodies, we find them in excessive amount. So the gut health is very important here. Nourishing gut, cleaning out the inflammation, cleaning out infections. It can be a bunch of things, and there are specific tests for that. And then liver health is very important here, because guts and liver and bile is also very connected. The whole digestive system. It actually kind of starts from, I would say, from the brain to the stomach. Stomach acid, good amount of stomach acid for breaking down the macronutrients, and for better absorption and assimilation those nutrients into the bloodstream, right? So liver health is very important, because actually the conversion of thyroid hormones T4 into T3 happens in the liver and in the gut. So there's a lot of things that can be connected, and it's not just the isolated thyroid organ, right? So there's so many other things in the whole system we need to look at. And also a few things I want to mention, that so as thyroid thyroid autoimmune disease, so as many autoimmune diseases out there, we call it, so what are the triggers? Most of the triggers, we call it a 3-leg of stool, and it is usually stress, toxins, infections, and food sensitivities. So those are kind of the things, the root causes that we need to go around and to look into each of it really into the depth.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so important. Thank you so much for connecting all those puzzle pieces for us, Yana. I think so many people just don't realize how interconnected our body systems really, really are. So I am cognizant of the time, but I think what everybody is wanting to know and is going to be asking is, what do you recommend that we do if we have a thyroid disorder? So let's say, for example, hypothyroid Hashimoto's. Where would we start? You know, what would your top recommendations be, like in terms of nutrition or anything else that you've seen in your practice?
So yes, being as a nutritionist, I will just obviously mention nutrients. We need to pay attention to nutrient depletion. I would say that stress, doing anything for stress reduction, because no matter what kind of disorder or discomfort we are going through, nervous system is the main thing that regulates everything, and retraining nervous system, reducing stress is whatever you like to do to reduce stress, right, in a healthy way. That's obviously number one thing. But the nervous system on one hand is also dependent on nutrients, like the B vitamins, the vitamin A, the minerals, like good amount of magnesium is so much needed for regulating our central nervous system and autonomic nervous system. So it's definitely focusing on good nutrients, macronutrients. Thyroid loves animal protein, healthy animal fats. So it's some of the plant-based fats as well. It's bone broth. Thyroid kind of likes the darker color foods, which what comes to my mind right now is berries, black forbidden rice. I think it's called, black forbidden rice. Beef liver, because it's so rich in vitamin A and copper and magnesium, and it's just like a good type of life supplement. If somebody can't tolerate beef liver, eating beef liver, I know it's not the most exciting taste in your mouth, but there are also capsulated, dehydrated beef liver, and it's capsulated. Thyroid also needs good healthy carbohydrates, like starchy root vegetables and some of the fruits. If you can tolerate fruits as well. And such lifestyle factors, and they're so easy and available, and they're free. And one of them is going to bed at a better time. I would say 10:30. I always give that, like, ideally it's 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. without any digital devices. But I always give that extra because we live in this modern crazy world, right? 10:30. That's when our for the synthesis of melatonin is a sleep hormone. It regulates a lot of other hormones, and it is a great antioxidant, right? So when we sleep, we rejuvenate better. The hormone melatonin helps to fight the oxidative stress in the body, and we have this like better function of recycling old hormones and making new hormones for the next day. I would also mention, if we talk about stress, also mention delegating your schedule. People with symptoms of hypothyroid or Hashimoto's tend to take on a lot of things, right? Because nervous system is a little bit imbalanced. So delegating your schedule, saying no to things that you can feel that they can deplete you after, and it's very hard to restore the next day. And just sleep, nature, delegating stress, and specific rich nutrient dense foods.
Amazing. No, that's such a great, well-rounded, holistic suggestion. So I appreciate that very much. And I know Casey and I talk about this stuff frequently too. So
the foundations, right? We can start right there before we just go and make any investment, make any decision further.
Absolutely. Well, that was great, Yana. Thank you so much for all that information. Casey, do you have anything else that you were wanting to ask Yana?
No, but if you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments, or Yana's going to explain right now how to get a hold of her in case you want to follow up more on this discussion. So Yana, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
So I have the online presence as of now at my Better Wellness Facebook group. You can join me right there. I post some educational information, and also I am at on Instagram as Yana Nutritional Therapy. So that's where I am. Or just I am on Facebook, and just send me a message, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Awesome, thank you. I put Yana's Facebook business page on a post in my page. If everybody, if my group is wanting to see where she is, it's on my on the group page, so you can just click that link. Other than that, I think that's it, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much, Yana. We really appreciate all of your knowledge and your tips today. I know they're going to be so helpful, and so many people in our community are going to relate to what you shared and find your information very helpful. So thank you so much for coming, and
thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. Yes.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. We'll have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
Bye, everybody.